All right, everybody. It is my pleasure to introduce Angelica Chavez. Actually, I'm going to have her introduce herself because she'll do a much better job than I will. This is this month's AMA around sort of post-tax season resurrection. Like if something went seriously sideways for you this tax season, or you want to avoid something going sideways in the future, that is why I have the amazing Angelica with me today. So Jelly, as you are affectionately known, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what areas of accounting you specialize in, and then we will jump in with some really juicy questions.
Okay, so I'm Angelica Chavez. I'm an enrolled agent. So I'm an EA, and you guys could call me Jelly. That's totally fine. My focus is in taxation. So I, like to help small businesses. If you feel like you're a total mess, you are my people. So yeah, that's what I do.
And small business owners need good accounting resources. And I think everyone kind of bemoans the dearth of good accountants and bookkeepers out there. People seem to know enough to be dangerous, but not completely helpful. So I am very happy to have you with us today. So the first of my juicy questions, what did you routinely see come up this tax season that was problematic for the average small business owner, and what can they do to correct it?
Okay, so the biggest thing, the biggest problem is preparation. So before you come into my office, I like to get you prepared, and I like to make sure that your record keeping is on point, basically. If you want to have really great deductions and you want to have really fancy tax planning, we have to do that stuff in advance. And then the same with when you're coming in and you're a small business owner. I really want to talk to you in the time that is before or even in January, so you can be prepared of what you need to bring. And as far as record keeping goes, you have to prove those deductions, right? So we've seen the IRS has hired a lot of agents, and I've seen a lot of IRS letters recently. So I would highly recommend that if you're going to put it on your tax return, you have something to back it up, because that's the only way you're going to get through an audit is you have those receipts to back it up.
And that's something you mentioned the other day that really pricked up my ears because I hate paperwork. I really do. And I try and go as paperless as possible. And so I have not been keeping receipts. I've been counting on my statements
Yeah.
as proof of I purchased this thing and I can explain it. Like I try and make notes in my program, like if it just is like Amazon, it's like, no, these were business books, or this was for an office printer, or something. So I can try and recall, if needed, what that was for. And that's not going to cut it, right? Like we actually need to be saving receipts.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, you need those receipts. So, I mean, the best way to explain it is you go on Amazon, you buy yourself a new printer. It costs you what, $60 to get a new printer. And all this is going to say on your bank statement is Amazon $60, right? The
Got it.
IRS, like, yes, they want your bank statements, they want to see your notes. That's great, but you need the receipt, because your note, your handwritten note, you could have done that at any time. It's not contemporary.
Okay, so if you are ordering something on Amazon, then where you can go back and look at your order history, and it will have like pictures of what you purchased, and it will attach it to the dollar amount. Do we actually need to be printing like order histories and keeping that as part of our file along with restaurant receipts or whatever?
Yeah, yeah. You can never really rely on Amazon or on your bank or on someone else to hold on to those receipts. You can keep them on your computer. It doesn't have to be paper, like it doesn't have to be
Okay.
physical. You can keep it digitally. That's totally fine as long as you can access it again, and then you
Okay.
can print it out at that time that you need it.
Okay, because that is a mistake that I am making, thinking like, all right,
I
statements
can
should
go
be
back and find that later.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, my business is very simple, and I can usually recall what is attached to what. But for businesses that have way more moving parts and they're purchasing things on a far more regular basis than I am, I can see how that would be very difficult to go back and recreate history. So
Yeah.
basically, in answer to the question, what's the most common mistake? It's just being underprepared and underdocumented.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Your
right.
record keeping is the number one thing.
Okay.
That is it. Yep.
Good to know. So second question is, I've seen small business owners get into tax problems for a lot of different reasons, not the least of which bookkeepers who do not properly report sales tax or payroll tax. That sunk someone that I knew many years ago. They could not financially recover from the mistakes that their bookkeeper made. What's the best way to get out of the tax hole if you find yourself there? And what is also the best way to just keep yourself out of it to begin with?
Okay, yeah, let's start with how to keep yourself out of it to begin with.
Okay.
So, bookkeepers, tax preparers, something that a lot of people don't know is that anybody can be a tax preparer. Anybody can be a bookkeeper. You can file a tax return without needing, credentials. Anybody can go online, sign up on irs.gov and get a PTIN and say, hey, I'm a tax preparer now, right? So a lot of it is diligence and who you're choosing to trust with something as important as your financial statements, as your receipts, as your bookkeeping, and vetting that person. So you want to make sure that if you're going to trust your bookkeeper to do all of your sales tax, and you just want to like walk away and not look at it, at least quarterly or once a year, just double check on Arizona Department of Revenue that those things actually got filed, that stuff actually happened. And
Yeah.
it's awful because I understand that you do want to, put that responsibility on the bookkeeper to do all of it, but when it comes down to it, that responsibility is on you. And there are
Yeah.
repercussions that can happen against tax preparers, and you can report them, and bookkeepers as well. But the best way to stay out of it is just to make sure who you're trusting with this huge responsibility
Mhm.
is someone that actually knows what they're doing and someone you can trust.
Yeah, that is really good advice, because there definitely are varying degrees of competency in this area. I mean, that's arguably true of any industry, but it seems like with bookkeeping and accounting in particular, there's a wide variety of experiences out there. So it's probably a good idea. I mean, what I hear you recommending is whomever you choose, first of all, vet them. And secondly, coming in on a quarterly or at the very least a semi-annual basis and having someone check the work. Like,
Yes.
I've worked with many husband and wife teams over the years, and it's not uncommon for the wife to be the bookkeeper for a small family-owned business. And very often they're on it because
Yeah.
it's personally important that they account for every penny, and they are very on top of it, but they may not have the nuanced knowledge when it comes to where maybe you could save money or how to categorize things and just the little tweaks that could make a difference in your tax liability. So 4 to 6 times a year, like, just make sure you're having your work double checked.
Yeah, yeah, and even if, because it's great. I think it's fantastic that people do their own books, and I mean, make sure that I train people on QuickBooks and everything. I think that you can totally take care of that stuff yourself. That is fine if you're small enough. Just when you go in to do your tax return, maybe sit down with your accountant real quick and say, "Hey, did I do this right? Does this look okay?" And
Yeah.
then you can just get little bits and pieces of what you need to correct for the next year, and it's really that's a best place to start. You
Okay.
just need someone to check you and make sure you're good.
So let's say you find yourself in a bad tax situation. What can you do to get yourself out of it?
Okay, well, you want to find someone who can help you and is experienced to get you out of it. Let's say you hired a bookkeeper to do your payroll, right? They
Mhm.
never filed your payroll taxes.
Mhm.
And
Regrettably, not an uncommon thing.
regrettably not an uncommon thing, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it depends on the severity of the issue. Did they actually make the payments for you? They just didn't file the paperwork? Did they never make the payments? Do we have a theft situation where they pocketed all the money? So these are internal control issues that you need to be aware of, and it just depends on the severity of it. But to get yourself out of an issue like that, you need to hire someone to help you get out of it. And the first thing you need to do is get that paperwork filed, because the longer you wait, the more the penalties and the interest build up.
Okay, so don't go ostrich. Don't bury your head in the sand. If you get a scary letter from the IRS, share it with your accountant and get the wheels in motion. Don't pretend it doesn't exist.
Right, it'll just get worse.
Yeah, and fear is very paralyzing. I mean, the idea that you could be in trouble and that trouble could be really costly sometimes really causes paralysis to set in. But that is absolutely the worst thing that could happen in that situation. You want an advocate who can start getting things in motion. So
yeah, and 95% of the time it'll be okay. You will be fine. We'll just get the paperwork filed. We'll get this taken care of. You'll get it taken care of. It'll be okay. And so you just need to, okay, yes, this is really scary. We can do it. We got this, and that's just
good.
Yeah.
That is comforting.
Yeah.
So that actually, that kind of is a segue to my next question, which is, what is the biggest mistake that you see people make when it comes to tax planning?
Yeah, so just not doing it in general, or waiting until January through April to do your tax planning. My recommendation is you start your tax planning. You can start, mid-year. I mean, if you start at the beginning of the year tax planning, you want to have good history behind it. And a lot of the times our firm will do tax planning between October to December. And some of that tax planning might just be simple as, what am I going to owe this coming year? Did I make my estimated tax payments? And then it can get really more complicated, like, am I in the right entity? Is my cash flow proper? Do we need to start thinking about putting money into retirement? And, do I need to start talking to a financial advisor? So you just want to set a goal for yourself just to even have a tax planning start. So everything, you just have to start, right? You just need to make that one step. Let me go talk to my accountant. Let me just look at my tax return and see, okay, how can I plan better for next year? And if it's just making your estimated tax payment so you don't get hit with a penalty next year, that's great. That's tax planning. That's great.
Do you feel that, I mean, just kind of based on your own personal experience and your observations, do you think that people underutilize their accountants?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, the expectation on accountants, sorry to all the accountants out there who's about to have their expectations like boom up here. It should be a little bit higher. I mean, people are just thrilled that they're in my office and talking to me, that I answer my phone, and it shouldn't be that way. It should not be that way. We're very busy. Accountants are very busy. There's not enough of us out there. But you want to find someone you can settle in with, and you can really just utilize them they have a lot of knowledge, and you don't want it to be unused.
Yes. We need that on a t-shirt or something. We have a lot of knowledge. We don't want to unused like that. You should wear that throughout tax season every year. Pound it into our brains. You mentioned earlier something about like corporate designation, which ties into, for new or smaller businesses that are starting to grow. And this is a question that comes up in my coaching sessions a lot. People are starting to see an uptick. They can feel their trajectory. They're making more money. Are there any industry specific considerations that you should make when you're thinking about forming an S-corp? And what are some of the hazards of forming an S-corp too quickly?
So I'll start by saying, talk to your tax accountant. I don't know your situation. I don't know what you're going through. You want to make sure you get some good advice. With that, your industry might have a lot of ups and downs, like real estate industry, right? The realtors, they might have a lot of ups and downs. And if you jump into an S corporation too quickly, you might be paying too much money in compliance, and it doesn't even get you the tax savings that you expected, right? So there's a lot of different considerations. And then on top of that, if you're going to go S corporation, compliance is huge. If you're already bad at record keeping, you need to get that stuff in place before you decide to change to an S corporation, because the IRS will start thinking of you as, you're a business, you're a big business now. And, you got to put your big boy pants on and you got to do things the right way, right?
Yeah. And they're going to hold you accountable to it.
And they're going to hold you more accountable to it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So if you have no systems, you suck at paperwork, and you don't really understand what is required of an S-corp, dial that in first.
Yeah, and there's a lot of specific rules to an S corporation, like you have to be on payroll. If you can't afford to put yourself on payroll, that's probably not the best idea for you.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
And last but not least, what is something that you wish people better understood about accounting and the accounting industry?
So I think the thing that I wish everyone understood is there's different types of accountants, and there's different factors to accounting. You can meet a CPA and they might have very limited knowledge of how taxation works because they work in managerial accounting, right? Because they don't do taxes all the time. They're just helping the business stay and do analyticals. And so I think that the biggest thing is that if you meet an accountant, most people expect that they do tax, right? Tax work, or they expect that they know about bookkeeping, they know about these specific parts of industries. So you want to find the right accountant, just like with lawyers, right? There's an estate lawyer, there is, all these different types of lawyers. Same thing with accountants. You want to find the right accountant for the right need that you have.
Is there a particular description of accounting that your average small business owner needs to listen for particular keywords or particular things that an accountant would do that this accountant would be most familiar with your average small business owner issues?
So you want to find a tax accountant. That's gonna be your person. Bookkeepers too, they usually have a lot of connections to different accountants. But yeah, so tax accountant, that's it. Usually the small business owners need a tax accountant and a bookkeeper.
All right, those are my peeps. So thank you for taking care of them.
Yeah, of course.
Well, Jelly, as always, such a pleasure talking with you. Kind and smart is my favorite combination, and I deeply appreciate that about you. So thank you for all the good information and for what you do to keep my small business peeps humming right along. So next month, we will have a different AMA. I will make sure to throw that up into social media. And if you have any questions about our upcoming topic, be sure to let us know so we can cover them. Take care. Bye, guys. Thanks again, Jelly.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.